everyone, welcome to our channel, or welcome back to our channel. We are Matt and Jennifer Moses. We are a husband and wife team who flip furniture, but some of you may be here because we have been talking about Matt's health. Matt, he was diagnosed with a brain tumor about almost 2 years ago, and we're just going to hit the highlights on everything, but if you want to know more about anything that we have talked about, you can look in the section below and we will have a link to the playlist. It's titled Brain Cancer, and you can get more in depth on each stage that he went through. And if you have any questions that we don't answer here or we didn't answer in any of those, feel free to leave it in the comments below. But I think that the main reason that I at least wanted to film this video is because when he was first diagnosed, it felt like my world had shattered and I was in desperate need of hope. And so I was searching everywhere for someone who was on the other side of it. I just needed to have that glimmer of hope that, there was a success and everything was going to be okay. So if you have been diagnosed with brain cancer, or you have a loved one or a friend who's been diagnosed with brain cancer, feel free to send this on to them to bring them that little bit of hope. But we're just going to jump right in. We're going to kind of go through really quickly the timeline and just hit the high points of everything. Again, more in-depth links in the comments below. I'm going to kind of ask Matt just a series of questions, and then at the end we'll just talk about where we are now, how scans look, and next steps and things like that. So what were like the first signs and symptoms that you knew something's not right?
Yeah, so the first sign and symptom I had was some numbness down the right side of my arm, and it started happening is 1 or 2 times a day it would happen, and didn't really think anything about it. It would last, maybe a minute or so, and you wouldn't really even notice it. I could just kind of do this, and I could be sitting down talking with you, and you wouldn't even notice it. But I think it got to happening like 10 times a day, maybe, and it was like, okay, probably time to go see the doctor about it. So I went over to see the doctor, and he immediately was like, well, let's go see a cardiologist. And we got there, did all that, and that kind of all checked out good. So then we started talking about some other things, and he tried to put me on some anxiety medicine. And at first it really didn't do anything at all to help. So that he decided to go ahead and make an appointment with a neurologist and just to see. And right around that time when we made that appointment, which was about a month out, he adjusted the anxiety medicine to where it was, it actually kind of calmed down everything. But anyways, went on to see the neurologist, and that's when we had the MRI, and it showed a small little tumor up on the front left of my brain.
How did you feel hearing those words?
I guess it didn't really take it in. I remember sending you a text message because even you were like, go see him, get it knocked out. It would be good. I didn't think much of it at the time.
You're probably in shock, right?
Maybe that was it. I don't know. He didn't. And the doctor, I guess he probably put it toward me in a good way. Like let's go talk to a surgeon. Let's just see what they suggest. And we didn't
calm, but we need to get this, we don't need to just sit on this, but calming fears, but also, yeah. And so that was at the very beginning of February. And during that time, we saw 3 different neurosurgeons at 3 different places. And all 3 of them looked at Matt's MRI, and all 3 of them said, I don't think it's a glioblastoma, which all 3 of them were can't really tell if it's one of these 2. I feel like they were leaning more towards oligodendrogliomas, but none of them wanted to say anything. Every one of them said, we need to actually send it off to path to see what it is. But the first surgeon that we had gone to, he had said, due to where it was, because it was right on the speech area, all 3 of them were this is a very tricky spot to have a brain tumor. So they all had different ideas. The first one was there's no way that we can operate on this. We can go and take a biopsy of it and send it off to path and see what we're dealing with. The second guy said that's not a great idea at all, because if you're taking the biopsy and you hit a vessel and you bleed, you don't have the brain open, so it's not like you can stop the bleeding. So immediately the first surgeon was out. And the second surgeon sounded very confident that he could take care of this. And, and he said, if it's an oligodendroglioma, we just watch it. If it's an astrocytoma, we'll do chemoradiation. So then the third surgeon that we went to, he said he actually trained the second surgeon. And he agreed with the second surgeon. It needs to be an awake craniotomy because it was right at his speech area. So during an awake craniotomy, they're going to keep talking to him, asking any questions so that they know, like, if they start getting close to that area, they need to like stop and pull back. He is at like he's at UAB, so it's like our state's like big hospital. And because he had said, even if it's an oligodendroglioma or an astrocytoma, we're going to do chemo and radiation. I felt like he was, when Matt and I talked, we were like, you're a healthy young guy, like, we'll do the chemo and radiation. And if you're going to do chemo and radiation, you want to be at UAB. So I think that's where we landed with him. Mm-hmm. And immediately he told us the risk of seizures during the surgery. February 28th, he went in for an 8 to 10 hour awake craniotomy.
Well, the surgeon was very good. He was very positive that he had told us from the beginning, because of where it was and kind of where it was located in the brain, he was not going to be able to get it all, but he was very positive that he was going to be able to get a lot of it, most of it. And so I felt pretty good. I mean, because really I was pretty good because I didn't really feel that bad in general, mm-hmm. Other than the numbness. Mm-hmm. And the anxiety medicine I was taking had done away with it. So I felt great. Mm-hmm. Going under brain surgery, and you if somebody asked you how do you feel 1 out of 10, you'd say 10. Feel good. Mm-hmm. So it's like, why am I here? Mm-hmm. Why is somebody about to cut into my brain? Yeah. So, but it had to be done. Yeah. So we were very fortunate to be able to find it that early. Mm-hmm. So during the 8-hour craniotomy, he did end up having a pretty bad seizure. And after that seizure, they weren't able to talk to him. He wasn't able to answer the questions, so they couldn't proceed with the surgery. So they had to close him up, not having gotten all of the tumor that they would have been able to get, but due to the fact that he had such a bad seizure and he was not able to talk to them, they decided to close up. And the plan was going to be that when he was able to speak again, that they would go back in and take more of the brain tumor out. We went in on Tuesday and we left on Sunday, and he was never able to speak, which the surgeon had thought that it was going to come back before then. And his plan was to keep him there, and when he was able to speak, he would do another surgery. But since Matt was loaded up on steroids to reduce all of the brain swelling, he was running laps around the neuro ICU, mm-hmm. but still not able to speak. So the surgeon and I talked, and we just said, let's go home. Let's wait till he's recovered and able to speak. And maybe by then the path results will have come back, and if it's an oligo, we just watch it, and if it's an astrocytoma, those are a little bit more aggressive and tend to come back. So if it was that, we would go in for a second surgery. We went home. I may be wrong on this, I think it took about 6 weeks for you to fully be able to say all words and talk pretty normally. I don't
really remember how long it took. And it was 6 months of no driving.
Yep, 6 months of no driving.
With 2 young kids.
Yeah, that was not fun. I had to call and get people to pick me up, and it just wasn't fun. I think that really put a strain on our family, but thankfully we had family and friends who were around who were able to be Matt's chauffeur. That time, so in March of 2023, we got the path results back, and it was an oligodendroglioma, stage 3. So the plan was to continue on with chemo and radiation, but since it was an oligodendroglioma, we did not have to go in for another surgery, which was a huge blessing.
May 22nd, you started radiation.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that was 6 weeks of radiation, 5 days on, 2 days off.
Yep. So Monday through Friday, every day. And then you got Saturday and Sunday off. And that was then during the time when I could not drive. So I had to get somebody to drive me in the middle of the day.
A ride downtown.
A ride downtown, which
Every
is,
day, yeah.
with no traffic, it's about 20 minutes from here, but we're going down a very traffic road. So sometimes it might be an hour. You just never know. Depends on the time a lot of times.
How'd the radiation feel?
As far as radiation, well, how it felt when you sat there, it wasn't fun just laying there. But I mean, it took 15 minutes for radiation.
I don't remember how long you were in the...
I think it took 10 to 15 minutes once you got called back. It wasn't very long, but it really, after the day, after it took about a week being in it, you started feeling funny. I don't really know. I didn't lose hair or anything like that, but it just up and down constantly on how you felt. Like it just...
Like energy?
Yeah, energy, and how you like not wanting any food, or just sickness kind of feeling. They ended up, I think, putting me on a steroid during a little bit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that right? Yeah. And that helped a little bit, kind of pick me up some. But yeah, just an icky feeling. I don't know how else to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Would you have wanted to know, going, like, for people who are going through this, you gained a lot of weight after surgery with the steroids?
Yeah, probably from kind of going up to the surgery until after the surgery, because I say going up, I was started getting nervous about the surgery going up to it, until probably a month to 6 weeks after surgery.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll say for 2 months, I probably gained 50 pounds. Right? I don't know. Yeah, no, we'll say 30 pounds. I gained about 30 pounds for 2 months, about 2 or 3 weeks before surgery, and then about 3 or 4 weeks after surgery.
Those steroids were no joke.
Yeah, I gained about 50 pounds, or 30 pounds, about 30 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I ate constantly.
Yeah.
And didn't do any exercise at all.
Yeah. Okay, so that was 30 treatments of radiation, and after that, you got a month off, an MRI every month? Or were we at every other month at that point?
I don't remember.
I don't remember. It was either every month or every other month. I apologize that I don't remember that. You finished July 3rd, and then we had a month off, and then in August, you started chemo.
Yep.
It was Temodar.
Timidar, yeah, she's right, Timidar. Yeah. And I would take it 5 days in a row, and then would be off 23 days.
12 months.
For a year. Oh my gosh, that was awful. Whew,
That's when you lost.
That's when I started really losing weight, because it did
pounds.
not want you to eat anything when you were taking it. Then finally, when you started kind of feeling better right at the last of the 23 days, you'd have to get back on it, and it's awful. At the very beginning of it, food would taste so weird. Just as simple as eating a hot dog, you'd feel like you're out there just like eating dirt. It's what it would taste like. Things would taste so weird.
It was like, it was always different from month to month.
It was completely different from month to month, yes. I'm gonna eat this because it tasted bad, but then you turn around the next month and you taste something that tasted good before, could taste it really bad. And not just taste too, smells, anything, it would be completely different every month, how it affected you and everything. It was so wild. Yeah.
But during chemo, it was a MRI every other month.
Yes.
But he did have to do blood work every month. So every month we were going to the doctor for something, either an appointment, an MRI, or blood work. But during chemo, MRIs were every other month. And in December, your MRI.
In December, right before Christmas in 2023, doctor came in and said, "Merry Christmas. I cannot see any tumor nothing at all. And but we will continue on with the chemo to finish it off to make sure nothing is there that we can't see. But I can't see anything. And yeah, Merry Christmas is what he said.
And I remember being so scared for that MRI because on, I think it was like a Monday, he had a pretty bad seizure, and he already had a scan planned for Wednesday, but we were very worried what that scan was going to show. And I also feel it's weird that every time Matt has had a seizure, the scans have just looked better. Yeah. But we did talk to him about that our oncologist about that this past time, like, why is he still having seizures if the tumor is gone? And he said that you're not going to cure this type of brain cancer. Even though the tumor is gone, you still have those cells, those cancer cells. And given the fact that where those cells are in Matt's brain, it just makes him a lot more sensitive to being prone to seizures. So I think that that's important for us to remember going forward, is that if he has a seizure, it's not necessarily because a brain tumor is coming back, but so that gave us a lot of peace knowing that. So hopefully that helps someone out here, because that was a big question that I had. July 2024, you finished chemo.
Yep. So glad for it to be over. Winning the national championship.
I know.
Getting to that date was just, whew, so glad. Yeah.
And then we had a scan that month, and everything had still looked good. And then the very next month, we were like, we were doing the calendar. There was no doctor appointment at all.
Yeah.
And that had been over like 18 months of not having any sort of doctor's appointment on the calendar. Yeah. So now we have scans. You have a scan every 3 months.
Yep. Doctor's appointment and scan every 3 months, and that's the plan for the next 2 years. And we just got done with the first one. So the first 3 months, we just had a scan. Was it 2 weeks ago? About 2 weeks ago, we had the scan and the doctor's appointment. So the first one. So, yeah.
How are you feeling now? Like physically and emotionally?
I was a little nervous coming up to that scan because, it's the longest one away with really no medicine fighting necessarily against.
As much as you hated chemo, it was almost like, but it's doing something. Yeah.
So there's nothing really doing against if there was a tumor there. So I was a little nervous from that standpoint, but they didn't see anything. Nothing really at all. And so that was a relief. So now it's kind of like, okay, life's going on. Yeah. And so.
Feeling pretty optimistic.
Feeling more optimistic about it. Yeah, for sure. And
physically, how are you feeling?
Physically, I feel good. Yeah, I do. The seizure medications are getting adjusted a little here and there. So that's something that we talked to him about, and he's just kind of like, just kind of got to fight through it. Your body's got to adjust a little to it. So that's kind of where we are right now, kind of adjusting to the medications a little bit. But that helped talking to him about it a little, just knowing that the medications give them a little time to kind of settle in on your body. And so from that standpoint, just hearing that coming out from somebody that has a lot of knowledge about the medicine, it really immediately makes it feel better.
I think it's always like comforting and validating when you say, I'm having these feelings, and they're like, yeah, that's the medicine 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably like my last question. So you're on 2 seizure medications, Zonegran and Vimpat. What kind of like are you feeling on those 2 medicines? I know that you're taking them at the same time, so you don't know which is which, but what are some things that you've been feeling?
Sleeping has been hard, and I think it has to do with the medicines. Appetite comes and goes. Sometimes I don't really want to eat anything. Be a bad thing or a good thing. Depends on how you look at it. Noise is necessarily like
a
concert or something like that, yeah. But it's more of like dropping a glass and breaking it. Like you might hear it and be like, oh, what was that? Me, it's like, oh my gosh, that like it knocks me out of this world when something like that happens. I don't understand why that is. It's just a sudden reaction all of a sudden, and I can't get over it. I don't know. I wish somebody, like if you're at a restaurant and somebody pulls a chair across across over to the next seat or something, pulls a chair across. Those kind of things get me a good bit. Stuff like that.
A fire alarm going off.
Yeah, a sudden fire alarm all of a sudden starting. That it takes the breath out of me. It's kind of wild.
So now that I've been asking you all these questions, I'll give you a break and just tell how I have felt as a partner, spouse, watching my loved one go through all this.
Hold on 1 second here. I'll go ahead and tell you before she even starts. She has been amazing for me. I am so glad that I have her, and she is unbelievable.
Oh, I'm gonna get like teary-eyed. Oh, thank you. I feel like I am a changed person. When he was diagnosed, the month of February, it was a whirlwind. I cried all the time because you just hear brain tumor and you don't know what to expect. You have all these different opinions, and I was like, I can't do life without him. We had 2 young kids, and it was terrifying. And I think I lost about 15 pounds in the month of February. I cried all the time. I started having a ton of panic attacks. I did not handle it well at all. I think that when I was around him, I kept it together as best as I could, but I would frequently leave the room and just have a meltdown. My amazing coworkers I pretty much saved it till I got to work, and they really, my amazing coworkers really helped me out a lot through that. Your radiologist said was that it was going to be a new normal. It was never going to be the same, but it was going to be a new normal, and I think he nailed it, because it became just like the routine of, radiation, but then chemo. It was always like planning our months around when he would be on chemo. Like if we wanted to go on like a little trip or something, we had to kind of plan it around like, well, how is he going to be feeling? Like before we made a commitment, we would look at the calendar to see about when he was going to be on chemo. And so that was a bit of an adjustment, doing that. And then I think I'm always going to be anxious before scans. Maybe the longer it goes out, the less anxious I'll be. But I also was very anxious before this past scan, because it was the first one that we had gone from every other month to 3 months out. But yeah, I feel a lot better. I feel a lot more optimistic too. I've gained some of that weight back. I've been able to, eat more now. And I think that we're both just so much more, our marriage, I think, has changed.
Yeah, for sure.
When you go through something like that, I don't think that you can come through on this side, but I think it's been better.
Yeah, for sure it's better.
Yeah.
For sure.
You go through something like that, and it's a very bonding experience.
Yep. And we know God has got us. He's got us in his hands, and we put a lot of trust in him. Mm-hmm. All of our trust in him.
Mm-hmm. He's good no matter what. Mm-hmm. I think if we look back on the first video, we had prayer requests, and every single one of those prayer requests were not answered. Mm-hmm. But the peace that we had, going through all that, I think you having a seizure and losing your speech was still God being good, because that kept you from going into another surgery. And since God knew that it was an oligodendroglioma, he knew that your path would be chemo and radiation. And I think it might have been one of those cases where it's like he wanted the glory. Like we needed to give God the glory. So, it allowed God to have more of a mountain, because the surgeon was not able to take all that tumor, and it would look like it was a defeat, it was a loss, but really it was just an opportunity to give more glory to God, because he still removed all of that brain tumor through chemo and radiation.
Mm-hmm.
So hope this video helped, and so glad to be doing this video of us on the other side, and I hope that this gave hope to you guys. If y'all are going through this, again, y'all can feel free to reach out and ask us any questions that we haven't answered. And you know, it would have been really nice to see some of these videos when he was first diagnosed, just to have that bit of hope. So hopefully that is what we did with this video. But thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and we will be getting back to more furniture flipping content.